Give me a couple seconds. Why do I always get the heavy stuff? This is the Omega Lift 27035, also known as the GQ035, and it's their 3.5 ton service jack or 3.5 ton floor jack. Whatever you want to call it, it's made for picking up heavy things like full-size SUVs and full-size trucks and big cars. It's not your typical wimpy aluminum 1.5 ton jack. This is the real deal. Is it professional? Well, actually, let's see. Actually, let me quit talking. We'll take a little in-depth look at each one of the features of this jack, and then we'll come back and just kind of give you our synopsis. This is the Omega Lift 3.5 ton. They call it their Magic Lift hydraulic service jack, but it's a floor jack, so 3.5 ton floor jack. I would consider this a heavy-duty or professional grade floor jack. We all like those aluminum ones because they're nice and light, but well, let's face it, when we get down to jacking up an SUV or a full-size car or a truck, you want something with a nice wide base like we have right here, and so a 3.5 ton jack, all steel, works great for that. So I want to touch on a few of the components, and really this is kind of the first time I'm going through this as well, but we'll see if it's kind of has the components that make it a professional floor jack in our standards, if you will. As I mentioned, it really matters in looking at the construction materials of the jack as to what kind of quality you've got, as well as how durable is it going to be, how heavy is it going to lift. When you look at the body through here, it's not quite a 1/4 inch, but it's thicker than 3/16. So I'm sure it's a metric thickness. But anyway, so just short of a 1/4 inch. There's a 1/4 right there, second to last. In addition to the thickness of this, you also have these molded sides, which are going to give it a lot more strength than just a typical, a flat side that's either stamped out or that's a piece of aluminum. Now let me shorten this handle. So it's got a 2-piece handle on it. And then let me jack this up and let's have a look at the lifting arms and the lifting mechanism. And so now when we get through here, in addition to the frame, right here in these major supporting arms here, this is 5/16. This is 1/4 inch. You can see it's thicker than 1/4. It's thicker than 5/16. It's not quite 3/8 of an inch, but again, nice solid steel supporting arms here to support the lift. Then you have a dual spring design in here for returning that cylinder. That makes it really nice. A lot of times you'll see a single spring and it just doesn't do a good job of returning that cylinder all the time. So that, even when there's no load on it, is going to pull that down with no problem whatsoever. So easily be able to return that jack back to resting. What I've also noticed is, as I mentioned, all steel in the construction. So this is steel here, and what we have here is cast iron. I believe that saddle there is cast iron, as well as this is cast iron as well. And I think I noticed the cylinder base is also going to be cast iron, but we'll notice that here in a moment. But again, nothing aluminum through here. This top plate here looks like a piece of maybe 10 gauge or 1/8 inch. Yeah, it's a little thicker. It's a little thicker than 1/8 inch, but that's just pretty much a top plate to hold some support on these lifting arms, but just provide a little extra support there. So not really holding a lot of weight, just more of a covering and a brace to keep these nice and parallel to provide that lifting power. We'll go ahead and pull this plate off of here, and we'll take a look at something else I like to see, and that is a grease fitting right here on that main pin through there. So again, this is taking the brunt of that weight when we're lifting. It's not going to bind or gouge or anything on itself. Stay nice and greased in there and move quite easily. Also in here, this has got it's not just a rubber plug there, it's actually got a breather there. It's going to breathe and allow you to add oil when it needs to, and it's got that breathable cap that goes on there also. You'll notice here on the 4 screws on this base, and as I mentioned, that's definitely a cast iron base on that cylinder there. Yeah, but you'll notice these 4 screws here, 2 of them have these stickers on there. Those are do not adjust. Those are adjusted from the factory. That's providing the right amount of force in this hole. One of them is probably a bypass valve, which allows you to not damage the jack by over pumping, and it also allows it to not pick up, say, 5 tons. So this is rated at 3.5 tons. This is adjusted from the factory to be able to do that safely and not be able to pick up too much weight, if you will. So that's why they say do not adjust there, because that's what you're adjusting is the springs and ball bearings, needle valves, whatever's in there, depending on what type they used. Now when we look at the back of the jack, a couple of things here as well that I really like. Number one, we have 2 return springs here on the handle. A lot of times you'll see just 1 spring, and over time that will provide not enough return force, and you'll notice that handle sagging or where it'll lay down and it won't come back up. But with those dual springs on there, that'll provide a long time of lifting for that jack handle. Single plunger here, so it's not a dual plunger design, but it does have that fast lift when there's no load on it. I think it's like 3.5 pumps. Let's see actually. For max height. 1, 2, 3. Yep, about 3.5. So that's as high as we go there. So 3.5 pumps to full lift. And now let's measure that lift there. So as far as at rest, we're looking at just at 4 inches. So right at 4 inches to clear the saddle here. So that's not bad at all. It's not necessarily a low profile, but it's not very high either. So the width of a 2x4, a little more as far as the low. And let's check out the high here. And the high, you're looking at just over 21 inches, so looks like 21.25 to the top of the saddle here. So from 4 to 21.25 for max lift. Again, as I mentioned, definitely a cast steel base to the hydraulic cylinder. So no aluminum there. It's definitely not going to flex. Going to provide a long time of use there. Yep. So cast iron there. Steel hydraulic cylinder. And again, you see here in the main structure here, that's again something way more than 1/4 inch, even more than 5/16. So almost 3/8 of an inch here on the main lifting structure of this jack, providing that capability of lifting that 3.5 tons. You also have ball bearing swivels here, so all steel wheels and also ball bearing swivels that have been greased. So like to see that. Definitely been greased. There's blue grease coming out right there. And as I mentioned, this is their Omega lift. Their model number 27035. I believe they call it also the GQ035, so 3.5 ton. So either one of those models should get you there. Really nice jack. It's not for the faint of heart. It's 107 pounds. But again, when you're looking for a, quote, professional jack or heavy-duty jack, they're not going to be light. So again, this one weighs in at almost 110 pounds at like 107. Let's go over and use it, and then we'll wrap this up. Let's see if it'll pass the test picking up this 1971 behemoth. No problem there whatsoever. It does take several pumps. But again, once you get pressure on there, any of the quick lift jacks are not going to keep going quick. So pretty typical. But again, this is a 1971 full-size GM muscle car. Not having a problem whatsoever. I guess not full-size, but you get it, muscle car. See how well it'll release. Yeah, so you can go as slow as you want to. Ease that down. A little faster, or slam it down. Again, let's see if we can ease it down. Oh yeah, no problem. Go as slow as you want. There you have it, the Omega Lift GQ035. It's kind of how we started this video, isn't it? So if you look at the bones of this jack, it definitely has the qualities of being a professional level jack. I like seeing the all steel components. I love seeing kind of the oversized steel structure, if you will. A lot of steel that was even greater than 5/16 in the main lifting size of this. I love seeing the cast iron built into it as well. The dual springs and on both the jack handle as well as the hydraulic return and the grease fitting here on the main spindle or on the main lifting point here. So I like seeing a lot of those qualities. I also like seeing a big wide base here because you got to look at this as almost like a jack stand, right? Because once it's jacked up in there, once you've got a car, you know, say 3 tons worth up in the air and you're sitting now 20 plus inches all the way up. Now you've got to have a nice wide base to be able to support that, because if there's any movement one way or the other, it's got to support that. So a narrow jack is not going to provide that additional stability like a nice wide jack's going to be, as well as a nice beefy jack that's built out of oversized components, if you will, is going to minimize any flex in that as well. So this worked really well. As far as price goes, it's like $281. You can buy it on Amazon. Omega Lift, one thing about them, their parent company has been involved in hydraulics for decades, so they know the business for sure. They have other models that are definitely cheaper. Comes with a 1-year warranty. But again, if you're wanting to step up to that pro level and, you know, a true 3.5 ton jack, you're going to have to pay a little more, or a lot of times you may want to pay a little more. Look at the features that you're getting. So, hey, you can check them out on Amazon. We'll provide a link down in the description. Keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, if you like this video, would you give us a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe? By all means, if you didn't like the video, give us that thumbs down, but would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.